Fuck, chat, there's a video I want to watch yesterday. I think it was from Veritasium. Is this one? I didn't start yet.
Now, I made a video before about a soft truss robot, and this is also a soft robot, but very different in how it works and what it can do.
I'll try, I'll see how it goes.
These robots can be made out of almost any material, but they all follow the same basic principle. Powered by compressed air, they grow from the tip.
That's good.
And this allows the robot to pass through tight spaces and also over sticky surfaces.
This just looks weird though.
We get stuck to it. It gets stuck in the wheels. Now if I do the same thing with the Vine robot, see the robot is able to extend.
It can navigate this curvy and twisted passageway effortlessly, which suggests some of the applications it's well suited for. Now you might think spikes would be the downfall of an inflatable robot, but even if it's punctured, as long as you have sufficient air pressure, the robot keeps going.
And you might be able to hear it. It's actually leaking now.
This is pretty sick, man.
So I'll have to turn up the pressure. This by itself is not yet a robot, but once we had steering, a camera, some sensors, and maybe some intelligence as to where we're directing it, then we could say it's a robot. So this is sort of the backbone of a robot. This is what allows us to build our type of robots.
So where did the idea for this device come from?
I had a vine in my office that was on a shelf, and it was kind of out of the sunlight. And over the course of like a year or so, it slowly grew out this tendril out and around the edge of the shelf and towards the sunlight.
What's up with chat? What's a chat war, dude, over some fucking plastic?
Did, right? So you started thinking, well, is there a way you could do that robotically?
The solution is really elegant in its simplicity. Just take some airtight tubing and fold it in on itself. It's kind of like a water wiggly, those toys that are really hard to hold. When you inflate it with compressed air, it starts growing out from the tip. And if you want the tube to always bend at a certain spot, you could just tape the tubing on the outside to shorten one of the sides.
Yeah, but how is it a robot,
For example, you could tape it into a helical shape to create a deployable antenna. What about getting them to retract?
Yeah, that's a challenging problem. When you're in a constrained environment, all you really have to do is pull on we call it the tail, so the material that is passing through the core of the body. You pull on it and it basically ungrows. It just goes back inside itself. Now, if you're in a big open area like this and you try pulling on that, instead of inverting, so retracting, it tends to kind of coil up and make a ugly shape.
Oh. The engineers have come up with ways to retract the tube to prevent it from buckling using internal rollers. But the tube doesn't have to be the same diameter the whole way along. Here there's actually a much wider section. Think of it like a pillow that's packed into the end of the robot.
Yeah, if you could sit cross-legged on it.
Cross-legged on the table. This sounds super sketchy.
So it grows underneath the table, just as usual, and then as the pillow part starts inflating...
What? Is this not good, or is this okay?
It can actually lift me up.
So my balance is not great, as we can see. Stand on it?
What's amazing is that this doesn't require much pressure above atmospheric. Just a tenth of an atmosphere applied over a large area like a square meter can lift something as heavy as 1,000 kilograms, all the while remaining soft.
Whoa. Woo. That was great.
That's the paradoxical thing about pressure. You can get a large overall force with low pressure as long as the area is large enough.
Right. What sort of area is that pillow there?
It's 600.
Well, that's actually pretty crazy.
Right.
I didn't know that.
1 psi, 600 pounds.
Yeah.
2 psi, 1,200 pounds.
And the whole time it feels really soft.
Yeah, because there's a couple psi, right?
It's important that the device is still soft so it doesn't hurt anyone.
So you can design these things to have cross-section that changes along its length. So it could be a very small body that could grow into, for example, a collapsed building and potentially lift a large object off someone who's trapped or maybe in a car crash or something like that. It can apply huge forces with very soft and lightweight, cheap materials.
These robots can also be deployed in search and rescue operations by attaching sensors like a camera onto the front.
These robots are actually really hard to stop, so you can take them, grow them into a clutter, potentially a collapsed building or something like that, and they will continue to go somewhere. An alternative is they're so cheap. I mean, they're basically free. You could grow 100 of them, let's say, into a collapsed building with some sensing on them, and maybe only one of them finds somebody. But I mean, that's a huge success if it does.
But how do you keep a camera connected to the front of the robot when it grows out
I
from
don't
the
think this
tip?
is useless.
Well, one way is to use an end cap, which allows that camera just to stay on the front, pushed from behind by the robot. But there are other mechanisms of attachment. The tiny wireless camera is mounted on an external frame, but this frame interlocks with an internal frame, which is actually inside the pressurized part of the robot body. It's similar to how a roller coaster's wheels go around the track. So this prevents the camera from falling off as the robot grows. What's really interesting is how the Vine robot can be actively steered. They attach artificial muscles to the robot. So the way this muscle works is that if you inflate it, it expands sideways, which leads to it contracting in length.
We don't actually use these much anymore because although it's soft, it's still somewhat stiff. So what we use instead are simply tubes of this ripstop nylon fabric with the braid oriented at 45 degrees. So in this sense, we just have one single layer of airtight fabric. This is the main robot body here. Then we have 3 pneumatic muscles connected to it. Now these 3 muscles are each connected to their own air supply with 2 regulators over here. As the robot extends from the tip, we can steer it by shortening and lengthening the sides. So you know, just the way your hand works is if I shorten this tendon in my arm, my hand will move this way.
Okay, can I see the later stages, man?
Liquid, and that can allow the Vine robot to grow into granular materials like sand.
If you've ever been to the beach and you try to stick like your umbrella pole into the ground, it's fairly difficult.
Okay, I'm gonna skip this part. Okay, chat guys, I'm a little bit lazy. I'm gonna skip it. It was me and Moxie. We dropped down.